Hello and welcome to the What Shara Made podcast. It's been a very long time since my last podcast, but welcome back if you are a returning viewer, and a big hello if this is the very first time you're joining me. I've got a lot of things to show you, a couple of whips and several FOs, and I've got some non-knitting and crochet related things to show you. If you're watching this in the deep future, we're right in the middle of a global pandemic, and I'm in Victoria, Australia, and we are in a hard lockdown. We're about halfway through, fingers crossed it's halfway through and the lockdown doesn't get extended. And the area that I live in is right on the very edge of the hard lockdown area. So we have a lot of restrictions at the moment, which is fine. I won't complain about that at all, because we have to do something to get to the end. So we do have a lot of time at home at the moment, so that's been giving me a lot of time for crafting, which is fine. I would never complain about that, that's for sure. But it has led me to be making face masks, because we've got mandatory face mask wearing as well, face covering wearing. So anytime you leave the house you have to wear a face mask unless you've got a medical exemption. So I can show you some of the face masks I've been making. I've made a few different styles. I started to experiment a little bit. I looked up some patterns online, and there's lots and lots of different patterns, which is great that people have been putting their patterns online for others to use. I think, I can't remember which was the first one I used. I don't know that I've actually got any examples of that one in here. I might have given them all away. And then I started making this style next, so I'm sure you've seen that style before. I won't put it on because these are for other people, so I won't try it on. I'm sure you know what they look like on. I have got some here that are mine, so I can show you what they look like on. And that's quite beautiful fabric. That's a Japanese double gauze. So it's actually 2 layers of fabric. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Japanese double gauze, but the fabric itself is 2 layers and they're sort of meshed together. I'm not exactly sure on how it's done, but when you're working with it you can actually see the 2 layers of fabric, but they're somehow joined. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, but there's 3 layers of fabric. It's got little dots on the lining and another layer of fabric in between. And I've used fold over elastic for the ear straps, which is quite comfortable. It's usually used for undergarments, but it's also good for ear straps on face masks. So that's a style that I've been making. And this is another style that I've been making as well. You've probably seen people making these online. It's sometimes called an origami face mask or a 3D face mask, and I found these to be quite comfortable. Let's see, they're sort of, you can see why it's called a 3D face mask. I don't know if that's actually showing up. Oh, that probably gives you a bit more of an idea. They sort of sit out a little bit more on your face and you've got a bit more room to breathe. I found these to be quite comfortable, and that is a little printed natural or undyed linen. And I've made a quilt out of this fabric. I had some leftovers of this fabric and I made a little quilt for a friend's baby out of this fabric a few years ago. And it's just lined with plain calico. And once again I've got the fold over elastic for the ear straps. And another one of those origami style face masks, but with the groovy gold. I have one in this fabric, and whenever I wear it to the shops, people always ask me where I got it from because it's pretty groovy. and more. Won't show you everything because I've actually got a massive pile here. In some beautiful terracotta coloured linen with the black fold over elastic. If you live anywhere that had mandatory face mask wearing, you'll know that elastic became an endangered species as soon as face mask wearing became mandatory or even suggested. And yeah, elastic was sold out everywhere. And I knew that was coming, so I ordered some fold over elastic online. And some other types of elastic to do some experimenting with, but I found this was the best. The other thing that I found was really, really good for ear straps was, let me see if I've got some here. I used strips of t-shirt fabric. So I just cut some strips, see if I can unroll that. Just cut some strips of t-shirt fabric to make some ear straps, and they've been excellent. They're so comfortable, you can wear them all day without a bother, and they work really, really well, and obviously a really cheap alternative to elastic, and especially when you can't get any elastic. So yeah, they've been really helpful as well. And another style that I've been making is this, which is sort of an alternative style to this. Sort of an amended bandana. So this part sits like that. And I've been using these for exercise, solo exercise outdoors, because they allow for a lot more airflow. Great for solo exercise, but obviously don't provide anywhere near as much protection. So I wouldn't advise them or recommend them for when you're in groups or in confined spaces or anything like that. But yeah, pretty good for exercise. I wear one every day when I go out and do my 1 hour of government sanctioned exercise a day, and it seems to work well for me, and I find my glasses don't get as fogged up when I wear one of these too. I've got a few of those with magpies and with gum leaves. So I've been making quite a few, and I've been making them for friends and my family, and I made some fancy ones as well. This one is actually mine, so I can try it on. My velvet mask. Feels really nice. I actually made myself some lockdown robes, I called them. Luxury lockdown robes. You might have seen them on Instagram if you follow me there. And I used this fabric to make one of them, and I had some left over, so I made some masks out of this for me and a friend and one of my nieces, because she had a birthday recently and I thought she might fancy one of these. She thought it was pretty funny getting a mask for her birthday. I gave her some other stuff as well, but yeah, pretty funny. But that's enough about face masks. The other thing I've been making a lot of is socks. Sometimes I've been finding it a little bit hard to concentrate in lockdown and during this period, and socks are a good thing to work on, I find, for myself when I'm struggling for motivation or inspiration or struggling with concentration, because they're small, you don't have to think a lot, and you get a little bit of instant satisfaction. And sometimes when I'm struggling with motivation for other things, if I can finish off something small, it gives me a little bit of a feeling of accomplishment, and I can then move on to other things. So I've been doing a lot of socks, and I don't have them all here to show you because I've been giving them away, I've been making them for other people, or I've been wearing them, and you know, need to see my old worn socks. But if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen some of them, but others I'll pop some pictures up here. So that's a couple of the socks that I've been making during lockdown, or a few of the socks. Some other ones I've made, I haven't woven in the ends on these, as you can see, because they're a recent finish, but these are really stringy jelly roll socks, and they've got a little bit of ribbing in the middle. And I love my other jelly roll socks that I've made. They're so comfortable. And I'm not entirely sure about the yarn. Might be mostly Park from Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show, Australian Sheep and Wool Show, from many years ago. And this is left over from a pair of socks that I made my sister. I think it's mostly Park, but I can't be sure. And this might be Drop's Fable sock yarn, but I also can't be sure. They were just stash yarns that I got out of my little sock basket. So that is those socks. And I have this little rolled cuff. And these took no time at all, as I'm sure you can imagine, just a little pair of shorty socks. A really nice, quick, easy project that just worked up so quickly. Yeah, really great. Great for using up scraps, great for an instant satisfaction project, and they're so comfortable to wear. So I highly recommend this pattern. That's the Jelly Roll Socks by, I can't remember who, but I'll put the name down here. And another pair of socks I've been working on. I started knitting these on the weekend that should have been the Australian Sheep and Wool Show at Bendigo, but of course that was cancelled, which was really sad because that's my favourite weekend of the year, and that's when I get to catch up with all my favourite knitty people and from all over Australia, and we didn't get to do that this year. I was really miserable. So I started this pair of socks, which is my one of my patterns. I think it's the Felix socks pattern. I can't remember the name of my own pattern. Anyway, put the name down here. But the yarn is by the wonderful Vanessa from My Creative Garage, and I bought it last year at last year's Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show, or the Australian Sheep and Wool Show at Bendigo, and it is called Bendigo Blues, so I thought that was an incredibly appropriate yarn to be knitting on the weekend of the cancelled Australian Sheep and Wool Show at Bendigo, and it's knitting up so beautifully. How cool is that pooling? Like, that is awesome. You probably see it a little better on the back here. It is so gorgeous. I love it so much. So I need to do a little bit more work on that. I'm only a few rows away from starting the heel, so it's gonna look so cool. I can't wait to wear these. They look amazing. The yarn is so beautiful, the colours, and it's so soft. Oh, love it so much. And I'm making a pair of socks. A pair of giant man socks. And I did a new style of heel for me on these, but I'm a little bit worried that these socks are going to be too big. So I'm using the Star Toe. I can't remember the name of the pattern, so I'll put it here. You'd think I would have organised all this beforehand. No. By Stacey from Very Pink Knits, and I'm sure you probably all know her because she's awesome. Her videos on YouTube are the best. She is always my go-to whenever I need to figure out a new technique. That's where I go. I can highly recommend her. So it has the star toe. That's awesome. That was easy to do. The foot, obviously, very easy. Then, because it's a top sock, obviously. Then you do the gusset increases. And then you do this. I think it's called a Flegel heel. We do little short rows. I'm not doing a very good job of showing you this, but you do short rows and you make this sort of short row. It's not really a heel flap because you're not knitting a flap, but you bring the sides of the gusset back up and decrease it by doing the short rows, and then you're back to your original amount of stitches to do the ankle again. And while I followed the instructions and my gauge was correct, the sock is now much longer than I would normally do socks for this person's feet. So I am a little bit worried. So the correct length for this person's socks that I normally do is at this point here. So from the toe to this point here, which is the line of where the heel begins. That's the correct length for socks for this person normally. But then of course you have all of this too. And that part, it ends up adding about 3 more centimetres. I don't want them to have floppy socks that are gonna, like, I don't know, pile up in their shoes. But when you flatten out the heel, it, like, I don't know if I can do this and hold it up. When you flatten out the heel, it looks normal, and I don't know. Anyway, I've started knitting myself a sock following the same pattern, using the same technique, and I'll see if following the same instructions makes an extra long sock for myself, and then I'll know whether I should keep going with this one. As you can see, I stopped. I haven't finished it. I could have obviously finished this sock, but I stopped just in case I need to bring it back and shorten the foot to accommodate the extra length that this new heel style has added. But yeah, you can see it's pretty awesome yarn. Heaps of sparkles. They're gonna have little twinkle toes. But I've been knitting a lot of socks, which is fine with me. Now my next FO is something that I knit right at the start of lockdown number 1. We're actually in lockdown number 2. So we had lockdown number 1 that began in March, and that wasn't quite as severe, and we could still visit people and do other things and stuff like that. And then things got opened up quite a bit and everything was going okay for a little while. Then we got our second wave and then everything got locked back down. But I knit this one right at the start of the first lockdown, and it knit up really quickly. I did struggle a little bit with the pattern. It took me a little bit to sort of get the pattern straight in my mind. It has a lot of sizes in the pattern, and the pattern does jump around a little bit. There's a lot of information in the pattern for some parts of the cardigan, and then not as much information for other parts. And at a certain point I did just put the pattern down and go by instinct, and that worked much better for me. So it is the Celestial cardigan that's a little bit wrinkly because I've had it folded up on my dresser. It's the Celestial cardigan by Amber O'Brien. It's really wrinkly, my apologies. But I absolutely love it, and I've been wearing it a lot. I did have to restart it. I started knitting one size. My gauge was correct according to the pattern, and I went by the measurements in the pattern, and once I started knitting it I could see that clearly it was going to be absolutely ginormous, and I undid it and started again 2 sizes smaller than the original size, and I still could have gone down. Once I finished it I realised I still could have gone down another size, so I think the sizing might be a little bit generous in the pattern, and there's no shaping whatsoever in the body, so it is a little bit boxy. So if you're not into boxy shapes, you might like to add some waist shaping, and I probably would have preferred that myself, but I don't think I really understood the actual shaping and style so much of the pattern. I didn't realise it was going to be so boxy, or I would have added more or some shaping, particularly because it is a tiny bit big on me. And the neckline is really high, which is why I've got these buttons undone. I don't undo the buttons to take it on and off when I'm wearing it, but I do have to leave these buttons undone at all times, even when I'm wearing it, because if I do the buttons up, it's a bit, the neckline is really high and it's a bit, but I'm not really entirely sure what you could do about that, except maybe, it does have short rows so that the back of the neck is higher and the front is lower, which is really good, but it could do with being a bit more dramatic because the front neckline is really severe. But some people might enjoy that really high closed neckline. I'm not sure. But this style and this line is really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The yarn, I think it's called Silver Lining. Anyway, I'll put that down here. I'm out of practice with podcasting. I just can't remember the name of anything. And it's from Skeins. in New Zealand, and I have had it in my stash for probably over 5 years, maybe longer. Not even sure if they still make this colour, but I really love it, and I've been wearing this more than anything else I've made, I think, so clearly I love it. And I would happily make another one, especially now that I know how the pattern works. Yeah, it was, the actual knitting of it was really, really easy, and you could make one really quickly if you urgently needed a cardigan. You could do this one very easily. You could easily knit it in a week of evenings. Yeah, so that's my Celestial cardigan by Amber O'Brien. Absolutely love it. In fact, I am considering making another one because I love this one so much. And another FO you might have noticed is the one that I'm wearing. It is the Beauty School Dropout, I think, by Poison Girl Knits, I think, but I'll put the name here. And the yarn that I've used is also something that was deep, deep stash, and it was Peach Face by Lovebird Lane, and I think the colour name was Coral Reef, and I bought it for something else, some other project, and forgot to knit that, and just had this in my stash and thought, oh, I think that will work for this swatched, and it seemed to work, so I decided to make this template. And I only had 2 skeins, and I was a bit worried that I might run out, but I had heaps, had more than enough, because Peach Face are really long skeins, so it worked out quite well. And I did swap skeins every row because I was worried about pulling, and it still pulled, and it pulled in the most bizarre way right on my bosoms. Of course, naturally. It didn't pull anywhere else, just here, and it makes my boobs look weird. Like they're, I don't know. I'm still wearing it, and I still absolutely love it, and I've basically just been swapping between this and my Celestial cardigan pretty much every day. That's what I wear. So yeah, I don't know why it did that weird pulling right on my boobs, but you know, that's life. And I don't even care, I'm just wearing it with my weird boob illusion pulling. But yeah, this also knit up really quickly, despite it being fingering weight, 4-ply sweater. It worked up so quickly that I almost was like, what? How's this knitting so quickly? Probably because it's just plain knitting, so it's sort of like knitting a vanilla sock, and you just sort of, and it, yeah, worked up so quickly. It was great. So yeah, I absolutely love it. It's, yeah, really cool. Really, really cool. You knit the back, the top back first, and down to like sort of the bottoms of the armholes, I guess, and then you pick up the shoulders and knit down and down, and then you join and knit to the bottoms of the armholes, then you join to knit in the round and you knit the body, and then you pick up around the armholes and knit short rows for the sleeve cap, and then you join for the round and knit the sleeves. So, and then you pick up the neckline and do the neckband, and it's a folded over neckband, so you knit up and then, yeah, knit, and then you fold it down and stitch the neckband down. So yeah, it's really nice. I absolutely love it, and I'm looking to make another one of these too. This pattern was beautifully written, really easy to follow, like so wonderfully written. I could not fault it. It was quite an expensive pattern, but worth every cent. So yeah, I'm looking forward to knitting some more of Poison Girl's patterns, because this one was so well done. I'd happily pay for any of her patterns. So yeah, beautiful. Really, really loved it. Really enjoyed it. And she's got some really cool patterns. So yeah, love it. Love it. Really cool. And this yarn, beautiful. Really groovy. Looks really good. Knit up like this. Yeah, really cool. So my next thing that I'm going to show you is a whip, and I got given this yarn, which was very nice. I did someone a favour and they gave me some awesome yarn, so I decided to make myself a jumper, and I had enough to make a tessellate sweater by Andi Sutherland, and she's one of my favourite designers. I pretty much love everything she publishes. So I'm almost finished. I think I could probably finish this tonight if I put my mind to it. So can see. I don't know if you can see the actual pattern going on there. Oh yeah, you can. And you've got the moss stitch going down the sleeve as well. And I'm almost finished this second sleeve. And then I just need to do the neckband. So I think I probably will finish this tonight, which would be great. Then I can block it. And I've got a knitting related Zoom meeting in a few days, and I'd really like to wear it for that. That's the new going out. So yeah. This is the Tessellate sweater by Andi Sutherland, and the yarn is Malabrigo Rios, and it is the Ivy colourway. And I have swapped skeins every row or round in this yarn to avoid any sort of strange pulling in the body, but on the sleeves I couldn't be bothered doing that, particularly because this sweater is knit in the same way that this sweater is. So you knit the back, the top back, and then pick up on the shoulders and knit down the front, and then join to do the top front, and then join to do the whole body in the round. So it's the same situation. And then, so for the body it wasn't so hard to do the swap skeins, but in the sleeves, because you've got the short rows for the sleeve cap, that's a real pain to swap skeins on short rows for the sleeve cap. So I thought I'll just do the sleeve cap in one colour, then I'll swap skeins when I get to the round on the sleeves. And then I found myself halfway down the sleeve and I was still on the same skein. I thought, oh well. So I just used one skein for the sleeve, and there's no crazy pulling or anything, it's fine, so I just went with it. But it looks good. I'm really enjoying it. Love it. The pattern did call for 5mm needles with this 10 ply or worsted weight yarn, and I got gauge with that, but the fabric was really, really loose. Like, it felt uncomfortably loose. I didn't like the fabric I was getting, and the jumper seemed huge, even though I'd chosen the correct size according to the measurements written in the pattern. And I'd already done I was about to join, like I'd done the top back and the top front, and I was about to join to start knitting in the round. I was a few rows away from doing that, and I thought, I don't like the fabric and it's huge. So, but I also thought, it's taken me ages to get to this point. I don't want to undo it and start again. So I just went down a needle size and did the rest of it in a smaller needle. I hope that's okay. It looks fine. It looked much, much better. And my biggest area, of course, is right here. So I thought, oh well, I'll see how it goes. And it looks fine. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm glad I did, because I'm only just gonna have enough yarn. If I'd stuck with the 5mm needles, I would have run out of yarn by now. So that's that jumper. Now, the other thing I have been doing a lot of is crochet. And you don't normally see me doing a lot of crochet. I do a little bit every now and then, but not heaps. But I fell down a bit of a YouTube rabbit hole one night and discovered mosaic crochet. And I'm sure you've all fallen down a YouTube rabbit hole before. And I found a woman named Tina who is from Iceland, and she's amazing. She's incredibly talented, but she's also a joy to watch on YouTube as well. And she has heaps of really cool, really, really helpful videos, tutorials and things like that on mosaic crochet. And she's got heaps of really cool patterns and things like that for all sorts of beautiful things. So I decided to follow one of her tutorials, and it was really cool, and then I couldn't think about anything else. All I wanted to do was this mosaic crochet. So I dropped everything and started doing it, and I couldn't stop. So I think this one is the saga square, and I did a few saga squares and made mine into a bag. So it's pretty cool. So that's a square. Made it into a bag. It's actually pretty cool on the inside as well. So mosaic crochet also looks good on the inside. So I mean, you can tell it's the wrong side of the fabric, but it still looks nice and neat. There's no great big floats or anything like that. You can see where I've carried the yarn along, of course, but it's not unsightly. And if you put things in the bag, they're not going to get snagged on the yarn or anything like that. And it makes a nice sturdy fabric, good for a bag. Yeah, that's the saga bag. And the other thing that I made using Tina's patterns was the Havana shawl. And what is this? You probably can't see the whole thing. But it's pretty cool. And a little tassel. So this so mosaic crochet, I wonder if I'm going to be able to describe it. Just in case you want to see the back, I always want to see the back. This is the back of that shawl. I probably can't describe it, I probably shouldn't even try, but mosaic crochet, how do you describe it? it's not really like mosaic knitting, but you do use one colour per row. You're not using 2 colours per row or anything like that. It's way easier than you're imagining. That's another thing it has in common with mosaic knitting. That's also much easier than you're imagining. It's really fun. It's just a matter of following the pattern. Just read the pattern and do what it says. Yeah, I found it really, really easy. Way easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I just loved it. So much fun. And I loved it so much that I immediately started writing my own mosaic crochet patterns. So the first thing I did was make some mosaic crochet hats. And you might recognise this pattern as being a little bit familiar because it looks very much like my Vela shawl, and that was where I got the idea from. So this is a linen and merino yarn. Can't remember what it's called. Got it in my local yarn shop. It's really beautiful. Feels really, really nice. I think this is a men's size though, so it's probably gonna look a bit dumb if I put it on my head, but oh no, it still fits my buff head. But yeah. And another one. This one I don't know if it's gonna show up, but this, oh nice hair. This is reflective yarn. It's not going to show up, but when light hits it, like high-vis jackets and things like that, it reflects. So there's that, and another one. They're all the same. And this is a slightly different one. So this one's got little dots on it. This one, I quite like this one. Oh, where's the start? Oh, it's good if I can't figure out where the beginning and end is. But yeah, I quite like this little spotty one. I used it like an ombre yarn to do it. But yeah, it's quite thick and yeah, it makes a nice dense fabric, but yeah, really enjoying that. And the next thing I did was make a fluffy hair, a shawl pattern, using this as the Vela pattern with the plus signs as inspiration. This was my first one. It hasn't been blocked yet, so it's still a little bit curly. And I just used a bunch of stash yarn. So it'll look a lot better when it's been blocked and won't have some curly ends. This is so nice and thick and warm, and that's what the other side looks like, so it's still quite nice and neat. It wouldn't matter if your shawl flipped over, you wouldn't be worried about that showing. And I've got one here that I've done in more uniform colours, and I have blocked this one and put some tassels on it, and it is absolutely ginormous. It grew a little bit when I blocked it. I already knew it was going to be big, I didn't know just how big. See, it's huge. So this one is made using Bendigo Woolen Mills. Oh, what's the yarn called that has the bamboo and the wool? Anyway, I don't know what the yarn's called, but that's what it is. Oh, the tweed. Bendigo Woolen Mills DK tweed. So you get the idea. And of course it's got tassels. So I'm obsessed. So this one is actually for a friend's birthday. It's like a blanket. It's so huge. I don't know if she's actually going to be able to wear it. She might just have to put it on her bed. It's so huge. She's a bit taller than me though, so that will help. But yeah, it's huge. So you could definitely make it smaller than this. You would not need to make it quite as huge. And it would definitely work in 4-ply or DK, and it would probably be a bit more practical in 4-ply, to be honest, a bit more wearable, but I thought that would be really nice. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, and I've written the pattern but not to the stage where it's ready to be released, and it will need to be tested as well, so I'll be making a call for testers soon-ish. There's a few techniques in this that will require some extra explanations because I think they'll be new to a lot of people. Some people may have done mosaic crochet before, but there's a few techniques that will require some extra explanation, and I want to be able to provide that so that it's nice and clear for anyone who's approaching the pattern. And I hope to be able to do some videos to accompany the pattern so that it's really, really clear, so that you don't have to guess or just fumble through it by yourself. So if there's videos, that will help, because I've figured out some extra techniques so that you don't have to weave in 1,000 ends at the end of your pattern. You can just do it as you can just crochet them in, but really successfully. I know that sometimes when people crochet over their ends, it doesn't look great and it's not secure, and I would never normally do it when I'm crocheting because it usually, it doesn't look great, it's not secure, and if it's something that you're going to wear or it's in a position in the garment or accessory, whatever it is, that gets any sort of pressure or movement, they come loose, and that's just not practical, and you may as well just sew them in. But with mosaic crochet, if you've never done it before, you won't know this, but at the end of every row, you don't turn around and work back the other way. You cut your yarn at the end of every row. I know that sounds really scary and daunting, and it means that you have a bazillion ends. So at the end of every single one of these rows, you've got an end. Like, literally, right? So you do not want to have to sit there and sew in every single one of those ends. That is bananas. There is no way you would want to do that. But you also wouldn't want to fringe on that edge, so the top edge of your shawl. That's also not like a normal look of a shawl. I wouldn't want that on my shawl. So you need to figure out a way to hide those ends that's practical, aesthetically pleasing and easy to do, but also efficient as well. And I have been able to do that. So you can see on the reverse side, there's no, this is the side where all the ends are, there's no visible ends showing. I've been able to hide those successfully, and they're secure, they're not flapping around or any possibility of them springing out or anything like that, and it's easy to do while you're working your shawl. It's not tricky or time consuming or anything like that, and once you've done it a few times, you just get into the flow of it, and it's part of the pattern. You're not, it's not an extra step you have to do, it's just something that's part of the pattern. So I want to be able to show people how to do that so that they're not sitting there weaving in 5,000 ends. That would be bananas. That's probably the main thing that I want to be able to add as a video, besides the crocheting into the row below kind of thing. Besides that, that's really all there is to it. But yeah, so they're my mosaic crochet projects. I think I've covered everything. It looks like quite a long episode so far. I better let you go because you've probably got other things to do. You want to get back to your crafting? I hope you've all been well. I hope you've been keeping busy, and if you want to, let me know in the comments below what you've been keeping busy with. I'd love to hear about it. So thank you for joining me again in this episode, and I will hopefully see you again in the not too distant future. Bye.